Hello, everybody. John Pollock and Wai Ting here with our Fastlane post show. How are you, Wai?
Doing pretty well, John. How are you?
We're live.
We are live. Yes, live on Zoom for all of our double Ice Cap and Espresso patrons who have stuck around at 10 p.m. Eastern. How about that?
Perfect end time. Great start for us as we a pay-per-view that was on the Fastlane.
Did it feel fast to you?
Not the first 3/4 of this show that largely felt like there was absolutely no point to this show, but we got to some substance in some ways.
It felt like traffic within the Fastlane. You know,
yeah, this was like it was bottlenecked, and then at the end of it, it was I don't know. You were hungry, and there was like some diner that you found at the end that was like pretty satisfying. That you sat down for a half hour, but you were still in traffic for 3 hours.
It's like, being stuck in traffic for like 90% of the way, and then like the last 10th of your run is completely free. It's that sort of feeling.
Yeah, and you get to your destination, you're like, well, we kind of knew where we were going this whole time. Why did we take such a long route to get here?
Well, first of all, what do you know of the plans for this WrestleMania match with Reigns and Edge, and like what's going on here coming out of this?
It's my strong impression that we are getting a triple threat at WrestleMania.
I mean, it seemed to be the only indication coming out of this show.
I mean, there's no reason for that tap beyond inserting Bryan into this match, and that's certainly the conclusion I had. And I think that I mean, we have 3 shows, so they've got to make it very clear, and I think that is what will happen, I would assume, Friday. Like, they have to make this match, but that's my strong impression. We're getting triple threat with those 3. Like, this is... everything is geared around WrestleMania, so you are not doing a finish like that, tapping Roman Reigns, of all people, and then throwing Bryan into a random match in 3 weeks. So I'm expecting triple threat, because honestly, with the way they handled Edge at the end, that match needs Daniel Bryan. It's lost, to me, the sympathetic babyface without Daniel Bryan. So that's the belief of that I have.
Bryan definitely came out of that looking like the biggest babyface among the 3. And so, with all that said, I mean, this was not a throwaway pay-per-view, if you consider that finish, to be substantial.
I think that you could look at this show, and it was, to me, throwaway in the sense that everything up until the end, like, say what you will, people are going to be extremely harsh on one particular return, but I mean, it was the return of the Fiend after 3 months for a match that they have been building for months. So, like it or not, like, this is a match that they're building. So that was a significant part of tonight's show. And the main event, like, those were the consequences of tonight's show. The rest, I thought Drew and Sheamus had a really nice match, but they've had several really nice matches. This was an excuse to do another 20 minutes of them. So, hey, I would rather good quality than bad. But that was, I don't think anything that changes anything. And no hurt business on the show either. This was really just strong win for Drew going into WrestleMania.
And beyond that, of course, getting people over to Peacock before WrestleMania, having sort of a big drive before your WrestleMania weekend, I think there was purpose in that.
Yeah, I'm going to mention off the top that when we do go to phone calls, I would love to hear feedback, not just on Fastlane, but also if you are in the States, your experience on Peacock tonight. It sounded like there were people that had issues with them. I believe Peacock or WWE even issued a statement on it. And as well, we will be talking about the New Japan Cup final from earlier today. Today was a long day, a lot of wrestling going on between the New Japan Cup final. Noah had a card with Kazuki Fujita winning the GHC national title from Kano. We had the NWA pay-per-view. John Cena has a big report on that. It sounds like quite the tribute to Joseph Hudson, the question mark in that main event that both Nick Aldis and Aaron Stevens were dedicating it to, and I believe John Cena said like the best Aaron Stevens match he's seen.
I haven't seen it yet, so I look forward to seeing that for sure.
And then we had tonight's pay-per-view, so we will get into Fastlane. And the kickoff featured Kayla Braxton, Booker T, Jerry Lawler, and Peter Rosenberg. Not a whole lot to the kickoff beyond them bringing up that Shane McMahon had injured his knee earlier in the day, and that would set up an angle for the actual show. And the lone kickoff match was Riddle and Mustafa Ali for the United States Championship. I thought a pretty good match that these two had. I would put it above their match this past Monday on Raw. Riddle made his comeback where he had been selling the ribs. He hit the final flash. Floating bro landed on Ali's knee, and then Ali got the Koji clutch. Riddle lifted him up, dropped Ali, but hurting the ribs in the process, and then caught Ali with a choke in the corner, lifted him up on the second turnbuckle for the bro Derek, and won in 9 minutes and 16 seconds. After the match was the big breakup as Ali was browbeating all the members of Retribution. First it was Reckoning who walked out, then Slapjack had had enough, and it culminated with T-Bar and Mace choke slamming Mustafa Ali, and the implosion of Retribution occurred on the Fastlane kickoff show.
Which is fine. Like, I don't even know if this deserved any sort of pay-per-view spot, honestly. This breakup, I think, was long overdue. It was like pulling off a Band-Aid, but maybe like 3 weeks after that Band-Aid has, lost all of its effectiveness. It's got like
8 months, maybe?
8 months, sure. I mean, it's got little bits of hairs and dust sticking all over it. It's half flapping off, and it basically has just fallen off. Everybody has come out of this angle looking worse. That includes every member of Retribution. That includes Ali himself. So I'm more than happy to see this end. What do you think happens with all of these members?
I think it will become clear who they have plans for. Certainly, I could see everyone getting new characters. I hope this means something for Ali, and it doesn't just mean that he toils away in the same land that Ricochet and Humberto Carrillo occupy. I could see
the failure of this group should not be put on him whatsoever.
No, but I think that as well, if I'm looking at things, who are they going to see potential in? Could I see T-Bar or Mace getting a rebranding? Yes. And creating some monsters. Yeah, I could definitely see that. But I think for everyone, I think that Mia Yim should be fine. The women's division certainly could use her. I think everyone goes their separate ways. I don't need to see any more of this involving Retribution. I hope they just separate. But I hope
is there any chance they stay together but find new leadership?
I think these characters are dead. I don't think that you would... I think the problem was not having a great talker as your leader. It was like this thing was dead from the beginning. It was they were never given any opportunity, no story. It was so...
They were losing.
Comically bad. They lost all their matches. Like, it was designed to fail. This was not that, we had these great ideas and they just didn't click. No, these were awful ideas, and the performers were left to try and make what they could out of this, which was, unfortunately, nothing.
Well, I just suggested because the whole breakup has really been built around Ali thinking that the group is incompetent, and ultimately, from tonight having Ali or having the group saying teach us, and then Ali failing. It's the focus seems to be centered on the poor leadership of Ali for the reason for them to leave.
I mean, if they feel that they could extend this some way, I just think the characters are dead, that I would look at this as a hard reset. But coming out of this, I mean, they may do some angle out of this, and they all continue to have some program together with Ali. I mean, you could extend it, but I think ultimately the expiry date has been hit on this angle, and I'm hoping maybe post-Mania you see some of these people go in different directions.
Yeah.
The pay-per-view kicked off with Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler against Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair, and everyone rest assured Reginald returned at the pay-per-view in the corner of Jax and Baszler. This was peak WWE Tag Team Division. Both teams arguing before the bell rang, and then we are off to the races. And Banks and Belair got on the same page, working against Baszler, but then Baszler took over. She had the heat on Belair for the longest time. Then Banks eventually got tagged in after Belair rolled to the corner, and Banks she had some ambitious plan to leap off of Nia Jax to deliver a tornado DDT to Shayna Baszler. It sounds impressive if you can envision it, but the execution did not quite meet the mark. So Belair then came back. She hit a 450 splash when Reginald got involved and interfered, allowing the challengers to go after Reginald. Banks got the bank statement on Baszler, but Nia shoved Belair on top of them. So Banks gets upset at Belair for falling and landing on top of her. So as Banks is arguing with her, Baszler rolls her up from behind in 9 minutes and 42 seconds. And I did not think this match was great. I thought the finish was really lame. And Sasha and Belair I hope these next 3 weeks are some of the best storytelling that they have been saving up since the Royal Rumble, because God, do these two need it. Sasha looked so foolish here in the end. I just think this mini program, just to get us to Fastlane, has taken all the wind out of this program personally.
Totally agree. I think the match was below standard, certainly for Sasha and Bianca.
It was not a good match.
Yeah. I overall just find the whole story really predictable, cliched, and corny. It's exactly what we expected. You know, two partners who don't get along, going for a championship ahead of a match that they're already booked for at WrestleMania. And then some incident within the body of the match leads to them further hating each other. It did nothing of that sort, in my opinion. That, like, I thought these two had plenty of gripe with one another simply because Bianca Belair won the Royal Rumble and is about to challenge Sasha Banks for her belt. And all of these shenanigans that they've done for the past 2 months have only served to decrease my interest in this match. I definitely consider this potential for, a main event of a WrestleMania one of the nights. I don't see that anymore unless these next 3 weeks are just exceptional, which I definitely think they're starting further back than they were.
Banks slapped Belair, calling her a rookie, and left as Belair calmed herself down, looking at the WrestleMania sign for assurance that she's still got WrestleMania.
Yeah, I mean, the sign, it just like adds to the corniness of it all, right? Like the whole thing already feels like acting, and I really feel like Sasha has really done the over the top heel thing. It just not very well, like the fake laugh again is to me a real detriment. And I think even her transition from really a baby face before this whole thing began to now just all of a sudden just being a pretty straight up heel, I don't think has been handled very well. So in this Reginald stuff, like, did it play that big of a part in the end of all this?
I mean, he was the distraction for Sasha.
You could have had anybody come out to do a distraction. Like, was it worth having so much focus on Reginald for the past month and a half?
I mean, he was the one put in that role, so I understood by the time they got to this match, he was that figure to lead to Sasha losing. To me, it just, this match between Sasha and Belair, it was very simple, and sometimes the most simple stories are the ones that when you have to tell over 3 months, get muddled up with stuff like this, because it was a battle of who is the best on SmackDown, and instead, Belair and Banks are eating pins left and right leading into WrestleMania, and I think it's so harmed the easy momentum that they had when Belair won the Royal Rumble. Everyone wanted this match from the get-go, and when people want that match, it's just, let's not screw this up, and they're definitely fumbling so far. So 3 weeks, I hope that this can center the focus on these two, get the spare parts removed, and just give us a strong 3-week build to at least give us a big match at Mania. And ultimately, if they deliver on the match, that is what will be remembered.
The closing moments of the match had, or the angle had Sasha continually kind of berating Bianca for being the rookie and kind of almost telling her to, stay her place in line. So I think we can maybe expect some of that storytelling in the next few weeks.
Shane McMahon was on a crutch backstage, icing his knee. Elias and Jackson Riker are pitching him because Elias wants to perform at WrestleMania, and Shane says, "I've got an idea," which is our first warning sign of the night.
I thought it was pretty funny how, like, part of Elias's motivation is to have a performance so good, Bad Bunny will just want to give him his Grammy.
Man, that was really good. Here, this is not how Grammys work, but here you go. Big E and Apollo Crews for the Intercontinental Championship. Big E broke out the spear, taking Crews off the apron to the floor. And Big E was just trash talking him the entire match like he was Kevin Holland last night in the Derek Brunson fight. This was Kevin Holland for the whole fight, where he's just constantly talking, but he's losing like the whole fight. And it's just like, it was very weird. So
it works a lot better in pro wrestling than it does.
I mean, at least Big E was in control as he was berating Cruz. But then Cruz cut him off with a drop kick to the knee, hit some rolling German suplexes. And then in this transition, Big E went for the big ending. Cruz avoided it and went for an inside cradle. And referee Jessica Carr counted 2. And then Big E bridged as she counted 3. And it kind of looked like this double pin. This did not look smooth. It was kind of, you were left immediately to think they did the double pin, but what they were trying to convey is that Big E got his shoulders up at the last second because Cruz immediately accepted it as a loss. It went 5:43.
Do we know that that's what was supposed to happen, or was it simply Cruz?
I mean, the announcers stated that Big E retained, and Apollo was the one yelled, "This isn't over," and he treated it like a loss, like he got caught.
So do we not know that it was supposed to be a double pin, for instance, perhaps, and then referee did one of those things where, legitimately this person's got his shoulder up, so I have to call it for Big E.
If that was the case, you would have had the announcers hitting you over the head with that, and more importantly, you would have been selling the two sides arguing who won. Like, this was not that. This was Apollo Crews upset that he got caught.
Well, I'm saying, was it supposed to be a double pin? But the referee, for some reason, called it for Big E, like due to legitimacy, and then was the rest improvised? That's all I'm left asking, because it definitely didn't look like it was supposed to go the way it was planned, and you could tell because there was no crowd noise for the finish, no crowd.mp3 ready on the trigger, and no replay to show whatever this was supposed to be. So I just wonder what exactly was supposed to happen here. Although by the end, I do get the sense that Apollo was probably not supposed to win anyway. But whether or not it was supposed to be a double pinfall, I guess we'll find out in the days ahead.
I just don't see Apollo going to this post-match attack the way he did. Like, I think that the way the announcers sold it, and I mean, he instantly went to the attack. It was no like, oh shoot, we got to improvise on the fly here.
I mean, that could have been the point of improvisation.
I don't think you're improvising to that degree. Like, this was just a total beatdown here afterwards.
Well, they could have gone to this closing angle, no matter what.
Well, the whole point was Cruz repeatedly saying, it's not over. He hit him with the angle slam. So it looks like we're just going to continue this. And I don't know. It was 6 minutes.
Yeah, it was really unfortunate because, whatever this finish was, I thought killed an otherwise pretty good, intense match. From the moment they touched, it felt like it was very heated. So, when you look at the totality of this feud, it really is kind of pretty strange. Like, Apollo has
Big E is what? Like, how many times has he beaten
4-0 or something like that. So, but I am a fan of this new Apollo character. I think it's fresh. I do feel like they will carry this towards WrestleMania. But they're gonna have to.
You think this has enough juice to just as a singles match to go into WrestleMania?
Yes.
Wow. I guess it could if you add. Like, I don't even know what stipulation you're adding to it. 5 count, maybe?
5 count, yeah. But Big E has to win 5 times. Otherwise, okay. Apollo gets the championship. Yeah, I mean, for me, my only interest is because of this fresh Apollo character. Beyond that, I just
wonder if this is a match where this title, maybe you throw in other people and it becomes a multi-man match. Or
in 3 weeks? Like, can you really build up a big feud for Big E in 3 weeks?
I'm not saying you're building up a feud. I'm saying more it's accounting for numbers too. I just think coming back with Big E and Apollo Crews in 3 weeks without anything on top of it, and I don't know that this really screams for a stipulation. It's just, I don't know. It's like, to me, I don't know either why you did the match now or you didn't just flip the title onto Apollo if you wanted to keep this going.
Well, again, I imagine in the days and hours ahead, we'll find out what was supposed to happen here. But I just don't really see anybody else on the horizon for Big E other than Apollo Crews, because this really still feels unsettled.
Mm-hmm. And this was very short. So, I mean, maybe there's more to this finish that didn't quite meet it, because it was not a smooth finish at all. There was this Old Spice commercial Akira Tozawa was in it. R-Truth was in it. Some people got pinned. R-Truth still the 24/7 title. I don't want any analysis about this.
They had Rick Boogies playing Joseph Average here, like some sort of spokesman for Old Spice, and he actually pinned R-Truth accidentally in the scuffle here. I thought this was better than your typical 24/7 segment.
Yeah.
It at least drew money.
Yes, they did draw money here. So There you go. A money-making segment from Old Spice. So Elias is in the ring with Shane McMahon and Jackson Riker, and as he goes to perform, Shane informs Elias he is taking his spot against Braun Strowman. So at some point this week, they had stopped advertising this match. Then on SmackDown, this was back on. So I guess at some point they came up with this angle to get them out of the match and extend this program with Braun and Shane to Mania. So Elias was a punching bag, briefly got the heat as he chop blocked the knee, but then Strowman made his comeback, clothesline, power slam, and ended this in 3 minutes and 51 seconds. And that's it. It just looks like now Shane will get the match in 3 weeks.
It was just a TV squash match. Do you think this was always the plan to get for Shane to get out of the match like this? Or do you think they were actually supposed to have some form of actual match, Shane and Braun?
I could imagine maybe they just didn't know what they were going to do, whether it be an angle that you could just have Shane get some fluke win. But to me, that would be way too similar to what they were going to do with Alexa and Randy. But yeah, you go with this, like whatever. It's
whatever interest people will have in this Braun Shane program will be dependent on the stipulation that they set for the match, so that we can have some sort of anticipation of what Shane McMahon will jump off of. That really is the excuse for this entire thing.
A brains versus brawn match.
So, like what skill test? Like they'll play Jeopardy while jumping off of shit.
Yeah, there will be a trivia component. And then a physical component.
Can't wait.
Riddle and Shinsuke Nakamura were backstage for the most painful conversation that no man would ever want to be a part of. And poor Shinsuke had to listen to Riddle sell him on his business idea of selling scooters, and then going on this rambling story about his cousin Skeeter the Skater, who had a skating crash that caused him to walk like Nakamura does during his entrance. The comedy was that Nakamura hid to avoid the rest of this conversation, and Riddle was left by himself.
Yeah, you could just see Vince cracking up at this, loving this guy.
So
you gotta ride the scooter like this. You could just know he's coaching him on all this stuff.
So something's got to happen to this scooter. And my question is, for WrestleMania, does he come out with like a brand new, like, pimped out scooter?
He's got to do what he just said here. He's got to put some NOS on that thing, scooter all the way
Maybe
out.
that's going to be, he's going to come out to like a giant jet fueled scooter at WrestleMania.
Sure, down that ramp. That would actually be kind of cool.
Seth Rollins and Shinsuke Nakamura selling the effects of that conversation. Rollins was yelling about 22 times that Cesaro swung him. They had a good match. I thought that Rollins got to showcase some of his athleticism here. They went 13 minutes. Nakamura dropped a knee off the apron, but then Rollins cut him off. Suicide dive, hit the springboard knee, and then after Nakamura hit the sliding German and went for the Kinshasa, he was stopped with a buckle bomb, Falcon Arrow, and then Nakamura got out of the way of the stomp, hitting the landslide. He set up for the Kinshasa, but instead was stopped, hit in the back of the head. Rollins had went for a kick, missed, and then hit like this backward kick, and then hit the stomp, pinning Nakamura in 12:55. At this point in the show, this was probably the best match so far, but I mean, their competition was not all that stiff in the lead up.
I think when I think about these two talents, in my mind, for some reason, I think that these two could have such a great match. And I think, judging by those expectations, this was anything but to me. This was just a completely average WWE match. One person takes turns doing his signature moves. The other person takes turns doing his signature moves. Then you have some sort of finish. And just, to me, there was nothing new nor inventive, nor, was this a match you had to see at all. It was,
yeah. Fine is the ceiling for this match. And then the no-holds-barred match, Drew McIntyre and Sheamus. Drew came out with war paint, with the colors of the Scottish flag. I thought it was a cool look.
Cool look and a great video. Like, it really cleaned up all the months of bullshit that screwed this entire feud up. If you didn't watch any of the TV leading up to this program and you only watched that video, you'd probably think that this was a pretty well-built program.
That's why Sheamus was on the bump today, and he had mentioned that tonight, this is my WrestleMania. The natural follow-up question would have been, Sheamus, was this supposed to be your WrestleMania?
So probably supposed to be his Royal Rumble.
It probably was many things. It probably was not supposed to be his 2-hour notice on Raw a couple of weeks back. So anyway, if you enjoyed their matches on TV, this was an extension of it, with this being the definitive blow-off until they do another match tomorrow night, probably. We had weapons involved. They got the kendo sticks out, so this should blow up their Instagrams tomorrow with shots of their back. McIntyre got the kendo stick and drove it into Sheamus's eye. Great throwback to last year's favorite attack. They fought on the desk ringside as Sheamus gets thrown off of it. They fight around the arena up to the LED screens of the Thunderdome. And then McIntyre throws Sheamus through the screens to the floor, and the sparks start to fly. This was our tribute to Beyond the Mat. Mick Foley and The Rock with the sparks.
Oh, those sparks. I thought you were going to say our tribute to the Revolution. Because we had as much pyro here as we did in the main event.
I thought there was a little bit more
exploding barbed wire match. Oh, a bit more, yes.
So Sheamus is brought back to ringside, and Sheamus pops off the shoulders, hits a brogue kick, sending McIntyre over the barricade, and then hit White Noise off the barricade through the announcer's desk. Into the ring, they traded big slaps, and Sheamus had brought in a panel from the desk. McIntyre got control of him, hit the Future Shock onto the panel, and Claymore to win in 19 minutes and 42 seconds.
I thought this was very good. It was of the quality you've come to expect from these two, but expanded on a pay-per-view level. And it's just simply fun to watch like heavyweights hit each other with various items. I thought they planned some nice, satisfying table breaks, some explosions in all this. So it lived up to my expectations.
Went the right amount of time. I think that these two, honestly, the two TV matches and this, I thought they were 3 for 3 in their execution of the matches. And that's even with a non-finish in the second one. I thought that, these two, they had great chemistry together. And for a match that I think was a throwaway outcome for most, they had an entertaining match on the show. This was definitely the best match up until this point in the show.
Yeah. If this is to be the end, I think, we should congratulate Sheamus, because I think he's been very good since he's come back to Raw and started this program with Drew. It really is just unfortunate the story itself wasn't a bit more kind of cohesive and solid and straightforward. Drew almost looked emotional at the end here. Did you see that? His eyes looked like red and watering up or something.
I don't doubt that these two, I would love to hear these two at some point reflect on this program, because it started in November. Okay. They were starting that friendship, hitting it big in November. And I'm sure they did not expect in November that this will culminate at Fastlane. So I'm sure that these two had to deal with a lot of curveballs and unfortunately had to navigate plans change. That would be my assumption here. And I bet for these two, I'm sure at some point they were hoping, whether it be the Rumble, whether they even had hopes of this being enough to carry to Mania. I'm sure they had high expectations for where this could go and, tried to make the best out of it. So then we go to the main event. Randy Orton and Alexa Bliss. Randy Orton comes out, and as he is doing his pose on the turnbuckle, it's the return of the black goo. At this point, I knew Wai was going to love this. I
was just the moment he said, "Give me a damn towel," I just started laughing hysterically right away. Man.
Hey man, give him a lot of credit. He recovered from this his biggest concern was getting dirty and just wanted a towel. Just give me a sec. I'm good.
Can you just imagine the past 3 weeks for Randy? He's just oh man, shit, it's coming back up. Sorry guys, sorry family. I gotta just take a break from family dinner. I got this black tar shit problem that I've been dealing with.
You realize if we were in the era of like those trashy news magazine shows and someone decided to do a story on WWE COVID testing, this would be the B-roll they would use.
Yes. This is what life in Florida looks like.
So Alexa comes out. This is the worst theme in the history of pro wrestling. It's awful. It's like an audio engineer that just like, dude, look at my art, man. Look at this.
I didn't hate the idea. This was like a sort of like a fucked up, like screwed, detuned version of the, what is it, Bray Wyatt theme. The concept is fine. I've heard way worse. Like I've heard way worse mashups, like and other ideas.
I thought you'd like this. This is stuff I have heard come out of your car radio. This genre.
Sure. Yeah.
Orton walks up to Alexa, but a giant flame erupts. And Orton then stalks her around the ring. Alexa looks up to the ceiling and the lighting grid crashes down in front of Randy. So they go into the ring. This is my favorite moment in the history of pro wrestling.
This is my favorite moment, hearing you recap it all.
Alexa throws a fireball at Randy, which Orton like walks through. It's like he's built up an immunity to this fireball, and the announcers explained he partially blocked it. He partially blocked the fireball to his face.
Well, obviously the man knows what to expect now. He's studying the fireball tapes. Like he's been training with Ryu. Like he knows how to block these things now.
Well, then from the depths of hell, a giant hand from the swamp of doom comes up from the ring, grabbing at Randy. And out comes the newest Mattel figure that they're going to make a fortune off of. This was something that I'm sure I drew when I was 12 years old, and my art teacher told me to try again. Alexa sent Randy into the Fiend, who hit Sister Abigail, allowing Alexa to pin Randall in 4 minutes and 38 seconds, and Alexa Bliss wins.
So for people just listening to this who haven't seen it, I mean, this was supposed to be a burnt Fiend, like a fried Fiend.
Burning Man.
Burnt Man, maybe.
I don't think this installation would pass at Burning Man.
Probably not. This match, though, listen.
I know you loved it. Just tell me why.
I'm very hot and cold with this type of shit. Tonight I was hot for it because, man, I love this stuff whenever they commit and whenever they deliver something substantial and like, so what the fuck that you just have to, it was just entertaining. Like, first of all, this was a cinematic match, like clear editing, special effects, or simply just look at it as an angle.
They should have done this live at WrestleMania.
Oh my!
See if they could pull it off.
They'll probably pull off a bigger cinematic match at WrestleMania.
Oh, dude, like what they have to deliver at WrestleMania is just going to have to be a mind warp. It might have to close the show. Like, what do you close? Like, whatever this culmination is between these two.
With the live crowd, I can't see them closing any of those shows with a cinematic match. But that is the hinting that we are getting from the promos. It's like Alexa or somebody saying you're gonna have to like pay for your past sins or something to that effect. So I think like we're all but kind of guaranteed Firefly Funhouse match for me.
Is Randy Orton going to have to recreate his entrance from WrestleMania 33 for the rematch with Bray?
I hope they somehow touch on that. Yeah, just like, like that's, maybe they'll start all the way back from the beginning when he was like, competing with other of Bob Orton's DNA to be born simply. Anyway. Yes. Listen, they delivered on stunts here. They delivered on the return of the Fiend with a new look, So I thought at the very least this felt like a worthwhile chapter in this greater story.
Well, it was the return of the Fiend. I mean, the guy's been gone since December. It's been gone a long time.
Yeah, and Alexa has had the unfortunate task of trying to carry this thing to very varying degrees of success.
And then we go to the final match of the night. Roman Reigns, Daniel Bryan for the Universal Championship with Edge as the man standing ringside. And we start off with Bryan threatening for submissions. He's going for heel hooks, arm bars. He's then circling around Reigns, delivering low calf kicks. This guy knows what's the big thing in MMA at the moment.
He knows that you just saw what you just saw, and this guy was going to make all the people who want realism in their pro wrestling a bit happier.
So Reigns took control, running him into the post. Bryan would fight back with a top rope Hurricane Rana. There was a spot where Bryan went for a Pescado, and I guess Reigns was supposed to catch him, but Bryan was like so far extended that it basically turned into a power slam. And then Bryan recovered, flying knee off the apron, and Bryan just unloads these kicks on Reigns, who comes back with knees from the tie clinch. Bryan is stomping him down, gets the yes lock, and rotates him to the center of the ring. Reigns breaks free of the yes lock and lands giant strikes on top of Bryan. So then Bryan goes for the running knee, misses, and takes out the referee. And this was a devastating knee because this poor referee was unconscious for the rest of the show. He never came back.
Well, it was a big knee to the face.
So that's a big warning to whoever eats this kick. Reigns hits the spear and Edge slides in. Bryan kicks out at 2. So Edge is now the default in-ring referee. Reigns is landing more shots and he's caught in a triangle and then back into the yes lock. Bryan is delivering cross faces. He has the lock in deep when Jey Uso appears, super kicking Edge and Bryan. And we've got a chair in the ring. Bryan ducks the chair shot, takes out Jey with the running knee, and we never saw Jey again. So this knee needs to be investigated because there were casualties from this knee.
Yeah.
Bryan takes the chair, takes out Jey with it, then swings the chair at Reigns, misses, and hits Edge. We had our Shawn Taker Brett moment.
Mm-hmm.
Some weird transitions here. And with that, Edge goes down. Reigns lands the Superman punch, goes for the spear, and it's countered into the yes lock. And it's deep. And Reigns has this greatest look on his face. His eyes are about to pop out. And he taps. But the referee is still out. And the announcers are going crazy that Reigns has tapped. And then Edge attacks both men with a chair, screaming, "This is mine!" And he storms out. The man's like pulling the hair out of his head. And a new referee enters as Reigns climbs on top of Bryan, who is dead from the chair shots. And Roman Reigns pins Bryan in 30 minutes. But I think most leave this with a pretty clear direction that this has got to be a 3-way at WrestleMania. And I believe that's what we're going to get.
I thought this was a pretty shocking result. Not the outcome officially of the match, but seeing that visionary tap from Roman Reigns to Daniel Bryan, who I think all of us came in expecting to just be a bit of a lame duck challenger. You know, they did a great job setting you to believe that Bryan could possibly win, but there's no way that they're going to change this WrestleMania main event. I don't think for a second they're going to give Roman, the visual of Roman Reigns tapping out for the very first time in his career to Daniel Bryan, unless they had plans for Daniel Bryan substantially within the body of this main event at WrestleMania. So that
was a huge spot. And it was, to me, like we talked about this on Friday. I thought they had to give it to Bryan after he promised it to such a degree. It's either the babyface fails big or they do this. But yeah, it was a huge spot and they're not doing that for no reason. Roman has been ultra protected. So you only are doing that to add who is the natural babyface. Like this match needs Bryan after this finish. It absolutely does. So I think it's as clear cut as you could make it out to be.
And you know, like I thought they were going to go into this with like sort of Bryan and Edge being equal level baby faces. But I think like Edge coming in here, yes, he was justified in using the chair on Bryan. I mean, Bryan himself was about to use the chair. So, but you know, like for me, it was more so Edge complaining and whining and kind of like yelling, it's mine afterwards. That to me screamed, okay, he is turning slightly heel. And I'm now, as a fan, supposed to be wanting Daniel Bryan as the lone babyface to win this match.
Edge is aware he was still getting the shot, though, right?
So actually, this was part of the conversation in the pre-post show. Why do you think Edge was saying this is mine?
Well, I think that like that's a part that like he tried to explain it in the promo that he's not upset Bryan is getting this shot, just the way in which he went about it. And I brought that up at the time was, regardless, you get the winner. It doesn't matter. It does not matter who wins this. So I think that, like, given that this is the top program on SmackDown and who is involved here, I think they will explain all of this out. I don't think this is going to be one where it's left and does not make sense. But I think that does require a promo from Edge to explain what that means, because regardless of who won this match, you were getting that title shot. And either you have to make it clear that the closest we've come is Bryan outlining that Edge thinks he can beat Roman Reigns, that he wanted to be the one to beat Roman Reigns. I mean, that's one way you can go about it. Like, Bryan tapping him out, he's been the one that has been able to break this unbeatable force, and Edge wanted to be the one to do that.
See, I just see it as like Edge, like when he won the Rumble, he had his pick of several champions, and I think he chose Roman Reigns specifically for a reason. He doesn't simply want to be a champion. He wants to beat Roman Reigns to become champion. And that might have been somewhat understated in his subsequent promos, but I didn't really question why he was saying that at the end of all of it.
That's a great line, though, or a great story, though, for Bryan to believe you thought I was the easier win at WrestleMania. That Edge is kind of diminishing Daniel Bryan, thinking that is not the guy I want to be. I want to beat the best guy, and that best guy is Roman Reigns.
We'll see how they tell that story, but I think there's a lot to be told here. I mean, usually I don't like three-ways for my WrestleMania, but if that is the direction that they're going into, I'm not complaining.
I think Bryan has been awesome this last month. Like, I was very critical of the lead up to Elimination Chamber and maybe even the handling of that, but he has been so great. And to me,
the match will be better.
He is the spark plug for this match. It is a better match with Daniel Bryan in there. And they have tied him in so much with Edge and with Roman that this is one. I'm with you. I'm not always the biggest triple threat fan, but I think that that's the only direction to go out of this one. I like this a lot. This, to me, if I was going to say anything worth watching on this show, it's the main event.
I thought the actual match was very good. It was very well paced, and I think strategic on Daniel Bryan's part. Having Roman sell as much as he did for Bryan's submissions, I thought was wonderful. There were some beautiful yes lock entries from Bryan all the way through here. It was very, much more of a slower paced match, but compelling the whole way through. And that's something that's very unique about like Roman Reigns, because he can wrestle a match where he doesn't do a whole lot, yet I'm captivated the whole way through. And then we can have like, Randy Orton or like another, take your pick of like WWE style wrestler who does the same pace, but I get so bored. And I think much of that is because Roman's like groundwork that he does for the character, for the storyline is so strong that he goes through, once he gets to the match, there's plenty of subtext in between the lack of movement that keeps me like completely engaged. So I continue to enjoy like every main event he's been in.
So I enjoyed the main event. I enjoyed Drew and Sheamus. At most, I'm going thumbs in the middle on this show. I don't think this is a card you have to definitely drop what you're doing to go see. It was a show that, more than anything, I think was, let's see how Peacock holds up. And this was a trial and error kind of night for them. And now we've got our 3-week build, but I would say an average show.
Yeah, I'm honestly leaning like towards thumbs down. But the main
outside of those two matches, like there was some bad stuff on this show and some very bad stuff on this show, and other stuff that just felt like it was total throwaway. So I can totally see that justification of going thumbs down. I thought, given that we got 50 minutes, I thought a pretty solid wrestling. That's where I landed, a thumbs in the middle for a 2.5-hour show.
I agree. I thought the main event was definitely worth watching, and you got to see what the Fiend looks like, everybody.
Dude, 30 minutes on the dot on my stopwatch. There's something to be said about that. Oh, yes.
Wow.
30 on the second. Quickly, let's talk about the New Japan Cup final, and then we'll open up the phone line. So Will Ospreay defeated Shingo Takagi and went 30 minutes and 7 seconds. So, I mean...
They thought they were going to
hit the mark, but this would certainly have been the match of the day, and people will probably go a lot higher. The match was unbelievably spectacular. I haven't watched their Best of the Super Juniors match in a long time, but I am like, this one to me was unbelievably spectacular with some of the spots that they had early on. It was a lot about working over Takagi's back that was all taped up, while Ospreay had not just the shoulder injury, but also the nose that they were showcasing after the La Mystica from Zack Sabre Jr. And then it picked up where we had, they went to the floor, and this was when B distracted Takagi, who was shoved into the post, and Will set up a table, and it led to a 450 splash through this table. And this was one of the most spectacular spots of the year. This 450 through the table and the velocity at which he came off this turnbuckle with. But the spot that's going around everywhere was the pumping bomber, where Ospreay rotated, landed on his feet, and then hit an Os cutter, which I can see some criticism of like this pumping bomber that he did not show the effects of, but I was just in awe of watching this. Like this was unbelievable to see this involving two human beings pull this off.
When it's that creative and I think physically, impressive, I don't really
like. I'm watching the Fiend resurrect from the muddy swamps. Okay, it's like I'm not going to be drawing the line at a guy flipping off of a pumping bomber. Kota Ibushi was on the floor. He was at commentary, and it was encouraging Takagi after he had been put through this table to break the count, and he got in, took a shooting star press, and then down the stretch, it's Takagi going into like his Killer Kota version, where he was just no-selling everything. Hit Made in Japan, a Poison Rana, roared, which is always great from Takagi, but then the pumping bomber is countered with a standing Spanish fly. He fires back, hits the Hidden Blade, which is the first time he's hit at this tournament, and the Stormbreaker wins it for Ospreay. 30 minutes, 7 seconds. We will talk about the post-match angle, but the match itself, your thoughts?
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. As I think, everybody expected it to be. There was certainly a lot of, I think, pressure for them to live up to their last match, and I absolutely think they did. I think you're seeing a pretty different version of it, too, because you have a heavyweight Will Ospreay who feels a lot more confident as a heavyweight now, and also you have a heel Will Ospreay, which I think completely changes the dynamic. I thought his personality came across pretty strong throughout the match, and Shingo's babyface underdog, performance was tremendous as well, so I'm a little disappointed he didn't actually win this thing, but I mean, you could have went with either guy, and I'm sure they'll both. Shingo will get his opportunity very shortly.
I think that's very clear a match that is on the down the road that they will get to. I think that was very clear. This was as much Shingo's tournament as it was Ospreay's to me. Yeah. He had some. I would say, with the exception of the Evil match, I thought all of his matches were just outstanding in the tournament. So after Ospreay has Kota Ibushi in the ring, and he says he does not care about history or lineage. He's fine with Ibushi unifying the titles. He is number one. He needs that championship, and he loves this more than anything or anyone, and proceeds to lay out B. Priestley with a cutter. And this angle was, I'm talking about literally in the building and on commentary, it was met with such a shock. Like, it was silence. I thought the angle did not work for me. I thought that it was just met with, I don't think the people wanted it. I think it came so far out of left field, and the reaction afterward was pretty harsh on this angle. Just a combination of the male on female violence, and I just think, especially in a New Japan setting, I think it was very off-putting for a lot of people. But what did you think about the way to, whether it be to eliminate B. Priestley from the Empire completely, whether this sets up a return for her? It's almost a direct copy of an angle they did years ago with Randy Orton, with Stacy Keibler. That year he was going in to the Undertaker match, and he lays out Stacy, saying he's getting rid of all distractions before he takes on the Undertaker. And 16 years ago, I think people took that in a much different way than they do now, because I saw a lot of negativity towards this.
Yeah, I did too. I could say for myself, I mean, I was kind of spoiled before I actually seen this, so I kind of knew what to expect. But even watching it, like, I didn't find it all that shocking, and maybe that's just because like I'm kind of more used to looking at pro wrestling. I've seen these two have a match, so like I didn't think of it as that big of a shocking thing, but that's not really taking into account perhaps how the Japanese view something like this, how New Japan audiences view something like this, because something like this is quite rare. I can absolutely understand the negativity. I can understand the fact that it's like it's Will Ospreay, I suppose, who's like been a controversial figure, whether or not justified.
I think that certainly certainly is part of it as well. It's very difficult to look at, like, first of all, in New Japan, I can see very much how their audience does not want this kind of thing, and I didn't like it at all. I thought it really was unnecessary and just felt like, just from a pure storyline perspective, I think it's one of those, like the Ric Flair Charlotte thing, where it's just such there's no believability attached to it at all, that you like divorced from everything else. I just thought it was a poor angle in that sense. And I just think that in a different setting, would people have any different reaction to this? If we are going with just like the fact that you've mentioned that they have had a match together and that we have seen a lot of intergender wrestling, well, you're going to see angles attached to that at times to build up this. But this, to me, just given all those factors outlined, I just think that this really kind of just left this show on a bit of a down note that was an unnecessary one. It just rubbed people the wrong way, and I totally see that.
Yeah, and that sort of negativity coming out of a New Japan angle, I mean, at least in the main event, I find kind of rare. So clearly, it did not work for many people. Perhaps even, I wonder how, people involved with the company would even think about something like this.
Yeah, I know that Voices of Wrestling put out a report indicating that there were people upset at New Japan, that there was a very small number that even knew that the angle was about to be taking place. So yeah, it didn't seem like it landed, whether it be with fans or with people behind the scenes either. And the final note I would be remiss not to bring up is on Saturday's show in Sendai, one of the most unique occurrences during a show was the fact that an earthquake occurred as the 6-man was happening. This was just before the 2 semifinal matches, and I don't even know if the clip is still up there on New Japan World or not.
It's on Twitter, like it's been
people have probably seen it by now, but that was pretty scary. I was watching. I wasn't watching it live, but not too long after the fact, and I did not know ahead of time what I was seeing there. And when you see the camera go up and it's just everything is shaking, and you can just see the concern. And Kevin Kelly, Chris Charlton is not too far. He wasn't in the building, but he said after, like, he felt the shake from where he was. And then Kevin Kelly and Gino Gambino are sort of reacting to this from further away. And they pretty much had to fill for 25 minutes. And I thought did an exceptional job of having to deal with something that there is absolutely no way you could forecast occurring.
Part of the mark of a great broadcast team is, how they can handle situations on the fly. I just don't know if earthquake training is a part of any of those situations. So absolutely tremendous job by those. Tremendous job by, I thought, the participants of the match itself. I mean,
the baby faces stayed out there to like keep the crowd calm and entertained.
Posed for photos, and I think like this is never a good situation, but if there's some silver lining, it's that the people that were involved in this match were your biggest stars in the company, in Kota Ibushi, Kazuchika Okada, and Hiroshi Tanahashi, who were able to stay out there. And I thought it was really sweet how, like, the whole time they were trying to calm the audience, to tell them, hey, everything's okay, we're going to be here. And then Jay White, of course, being Jay White, stole their belts and then, like, came back out with it as a heel should. But this was like a 7.2 earthquake in Sendai.
This was a significant earthquake. It was very scary, like watching in the moment. And for these performers and those involved, it's like you're thinking of your family. And I mean, like, listen, everyone's going to have, especially in Japan, you think back to 10 years ago. That's where your mind is going to go to. So this,
I texted my brother, just in Tokyo, just to
did he
see
feel
how
it?
Was. Yeah. It was felt. Yeah, but he like by the time I got to him, he told me like, the warnings had passed. This is a way of life in Japan. They're under constant threat of something like this happening. Everybody like, they're taught in schools how to prepare for this stuff. But when it happens, of course, it's still incredibly scary. So glad, as far as we know, people are safe.
I've only experienced two in my life. There was one in Toronto years ago, and one time I was in LA in a cab, and like the ground just starts shaking, and my cab driver's just like, yeah, it's happened all the time. It's like, Jesus Christ.
Crazy. Yeah, it's hard to imagine.
Like if I get, you either, you get used to it to a degree, but it's crazy. But
this one's had it really exceptionally big.
Yeah. So, anyway, that was the New Japan Cup news, and I guess we'll open up the phone line. So if you want to chat about any of this, we're welcome to chat about whatever topics you would like. And we are 3 weeks out from WrestleMania. And if you use Peacock tonight, I'd love to hear what your experience was, and we'll try to get to as many calls as we can. So we will keep them quick.
Let's go first up to Rory in Australia. Thank you for staying up. Or at least what time is it over there, Rory?
Oh, no, it's quite easy for us. It's only 2 p.m. here.
Okay. Well, thank you for staying up till 2 p.m.
No worries. It's waking up early. That's the thing. But I just wanted to mention on what you were just talking about, like watching that earthquake moment. That was incredible. That was amazing. Like, and yes, it was a bad situation, but just to see, especially Chris, I was very impressed with Chris and how he relayed the information. Obviously, having that news on in the background, as he said, and just doing a fantastic job. Gino trying to be as entertaining as he can be, doing a fantastic job there, and just Kevin, just really holding it together. And yeah, just the wrestlers, my God, like seeing Tanahashi there playing the guitar, trying to get the crowd going and all that. It was just, it was sort of heartwarming to watch. It was so beautiful. But all in all, that was a fantastic show as well. That was really, really entertaining.
Fastlane, right?
No. I'm going with the New Japan. I'm going with the Sendai show. I just like and with the aftermatch angle, I was not shocked. Like, I'm going to be brutally honest with you, I was not shocked. Like, I've seen the reaction on Twitter. I've seen this. I've seen that. I just look at it as pro wrestling. That might be the naive way of looking at it, but I do look at it as pro wrestling, and clearly B was on board with it all. B was in on it, and she said, "Yeah, let's do it." I think all things would have been considered, and yeah, I just think just ease off, ease off him, everybody. Just but to me, to Fastlane, to the show today. Really, really good show. But yeah, I don't care about the Fiend. I'm surprised that they've managed to make Edge seem like someone that nobody really wants to see in the main event of WrestleMania. I found that quite interesting. Not as the main focus, so to speak. And yeah, with Bianca Belair and Sasha, I'm just like, wow, how do you mess that one up? I was very, very confused about that. So yeah, but that's all. That's just my thoughts. So I'll leave you to it.
Thank you, Rory. I think that is a good question. Like, if again, we don't know that they are going to do a 3-way. This could just be like building up to a big match on SmackDown with Daniel Bryan and like somebody else. But like,
I don't think that's the case.
I don't think so either. And so like, that's pretty unusual though, don't you think? Having like, this push the whole way through with Edge as a very clear babyface, and then kind of changing the audience's, focus like 3 weeks out.
I feel that the way they built this matchup with Bryan and Reigns, I mean, I think they laid this out the way this was going. Like, it was very strong with Daniel Bryan involved here. And I think that this was a natural way to go. To me, this doesn't feel like this is coming out of left field. Like, this feels like the natural progression of this story of the past 4 weeks since Elimination Chamber.
At what point do you think Bryan was in the I guess in the conversation to be inserted into this?
I would imagine like going several weeks back. Like the way
certainly
this was
certainly not all the way till the Rumble, right?
I wouldn't go that far, no. But I mean, from Elimination Chamber on, when they decided to go with this match and how hard they've pushed Bryan, it was to me like, and not just Bryan for Reigns, but they've been building up Bryan and Edge. And I would say once they were teasing that, I think like this 3-way was a natural match to expect at WrestleMania.
I guess I just find it interesting when, like, you know, it could have been Bryan all the way from the Rumble. You know, I guess Elimination Chamber, it could have been Bryan. But yeah, I'm not complaining again. Let's go to Hansi up next. Hansi, please unmute yourself. What's going on?
Yo, what's going on, man? No, I listen, the pay-per-view, I mean, all the endings, except for the Drew and Sheamus match, what I thought was really good. All the endings. Listen, with the Bianca and Sasha thing, I'm hoping that in the next 4 weeks they do some rehab on it, because there are people online going, "Oh, do you remember when Austin and Rock, you know, had this kind of build for their match?" But it's like they threw Deborah in there for like no reason, and then within like the last like 2-3 weeks they built it up. I'm not comparing it to Austin and Rock. I'm just saying that there is a way to rehab it, but they took some really unnecessary steps in how they presented this when it was a slam dunk. I've been saying it since Survivor Series, like even with like the booking and that, like they had a slam dunk with making Bianca have a cool career highlight of being a sole survivor, and then a Bayley feud, which didn't really go as well. The Royal Rumble win kind of, you know, helped her out. But then after that, it's just been, I don't know. It's like I hope the next 4 weeks we get that on the caliber of what it's supposed to be. If you know, and then
3 weeks, Hansi, time's ticking.
Yeah. And the Daniel Bryan stuff, you know, it went as well as expected. I like the fact that Roman Reigns tapped. I like that Big E and Apollo. They should have just waited for Apollo and Big E at WrestleMania. They need to have it, but I guess they wanted to prolong it. But before I go, I just want to say that I watched some of the New Japan stuff, and I know what you're saying, Pollock, that like he just came out of nowhere, but like I don't know, maybe because I haven't been checking for New Japan as much. I've actually been super impressed with Ospreay's character and his mic skills. Like I was like, wow, this guy actually has mic skills now, whatever. I thought like if there's a payback for what Bia's gonna do back to him or how they follow up with it, it depends on how they follow up with it. But I don't know, maybe I grew up in the Attitude Era, right? But I can understand why people are a little bit like kind of like, oh, this is kind of weird, whatever. This is kind of, you know what I mean? Especially with like some of the cases you have of the speaking out movement and all that type of stuff, what is the best thing? But I don't know. As far as being a heel, this is what I think a modern day heel should be, kind of. But you just need to have good guys to kind of, you know, give them their comeuppance, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? But as someone who hasn't watched New Japan a bit and kind of followed the clips on Reddit, I gotta say I enjoyed the match with Shingo. I want Shingo to be a world champion someday. You know what I mean? Just like I want Ishii to be a world champion someday. But basically, yeah, those are my thoughts. And thank you guys for doing some good work, man. I always appreciate these shows, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hansi.
Thanks for the call, Hansi. We go up next to Nick. Nick, what's up?
What's going on? Happy Sunday, guys. John, I'm disappointed that you didn't like the Alexa Bliss banger that was her remix theme tonight.
I hated it. It was
no, I didn't like it either.
I don't know. My ears were bleeding, so I couldn't quite make my way through it. But
I genuinely turned off my sound bar to like make sure it wasn't like something wrong with like my Bluetooth speaker. I was like so confused with what was happening there.
Well, someone spent a lot of hours on it, so let's not be too cruel.
I actually watched the show on Peacock.
Okay, well, tell us about how that went.
So I was really worried coming into tonight because I cover soccer, and for the Premier League, they've been putting a lot of their marquee games on Peacock, and that has really, I think, been a disastrous experience for NBC. I think they've experienced a lot of time lag, quality fluctuation.
I heard about that tonight, where it was like some people, it was behind the international network feed. And there's also, like, correct me if I'm wrong, that once you log in, there's no rewinding. You have to.
You can't rewind live. And you can't fast forward.
Right.
So you're stuck with the stream that they give you.
That would drive me insane. That would be impossible for me.
Yeah, I think overall for me, it didn't fluctuate in quality like the Premier League games, but I certainly was way behind one of my friends who I was watching this with, who was watching on the network. So I was about like a minute 30 seconds behind him.
Wow.
So there is a significant time lag. I think overall though, the quality came through really well. I didn't experience any breakage like some other people. So I think they definitely have some issues to iron out before Mania, but with the time thing. But other than that, I think it was a relatively successful debut on Peacock for them.
WWE put out, this is the statement they put out. Any issues occurring with tonight's broadcast of Fastlane will be addressed in the future.
And just to refresh, no commercials?
No commercials. Cool. They had like the standard like WWE Hulu promos and stuff like that, and a bit more.
Yeah,
like
but we've got those too. Yeah. I think for the live pay-per-views, I think you're going to see more of the intrusive ads on more of your on-demand content rather than live pay-per-views. You would think.
Yeah, this whole experience felt way more like streaming a movie or a TV show than like a live televised sports match, which I think benefited this experience in particular.
Right. All right. Well, I guess it remains to be seen. The big test will be in 3 weeks. But it seems like, there were some hiccups tonight, but I mean, the big test is in 3 weeks.
Yeah, I agree. I think especially with 2 nights in a row, we'll see how they maintain that sort of consistency with it. I think on the whole, I think the problem I had with this show is that you could skip it entirely and then go into Raw and SmackDown, not having missed a thing aside from the main event. And I think, like, say what you want about AEW Revolution, and I guess they have the benefit of not having to do as many pay-per-views. But even with the matches that you could attribute to be as filler, like those matches still have stakes. And even Drew and Sheamus, which I thought was a really good match, I would have saved the Drew McIntyre versus Bobby Lashley match announcement for tomorrow. So it felt like Drew had earned something by beating Sheamus tonight other than bragging rights. But that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, from a pure build standpoint, I completely agree with you. I think more than anything, it was the timing of tickets going on sale. I think that put them into this position where you kind of had to go backwards, announcing the match and then do this lame duck match with Drew and Sheamus. That ideally, I mean, it just seems it would have been logical that tonight's match, Sheamus and Drew wins, he advances and gets the title shot, and you confirm it on Monday. But we kind of had to go backwards.
Yep. And I think the main event is really good. I think they have to do a triple threat just because Edge has been cutting sneakily heel promos for a few weeks now. I think they've kind of exhausted his fuel as a babyface. And I'm excited because I think a heel Edge is sort of the peak Edge. He's one of the greatest heels of all time. And I'm excited to see what his heel promos have in store, on SmackDown and going forward in the build to this feud. So that's all I have to say. I appreciate you guys as always.
Thank you, Nick, as always.
And we have one bit of news here. WWE has come to terms on the release of Andrade. We wish him all the best in all of his future endeavors.
Wow. He got it. There you go.
So there you go. Andrade is, I would think that probably is going to have a no compete. Yes. I would think that would be the bare minimum that they would insist upon. So probably 90 days would be my guess.
Interesting. Well, we'll see what the fallout is and probably discuss a bit more tomorrow. Let's go up next to Alex. Alex, what's up?
Hey guys, been a long time fan since you guys were on the Law, so really glad to get to talk to you guys about just Road to WrestleMania stuff.
Awesome.
So
thanks.
Yeah, I want to talk mainly about the Sasha and Bianca feud. So I'm actually going to be traveling from California to Tampa to the show. I'm fully vaccinated, and by the time 3 weeks from now, I should be fully able to go travel and be safe as possible. So for me, that was my main event match. So for all of this stuff to be happening with this feud, it's very disappointing because to me, that's what I thought would be the night one main event. But at this point, it kind of looks like it's going to be relegated to like either an opener or right in the middle of the show. So it's really
Still think it'll be
disappointing.
featured pretty prominently. I don't know if that means where its placement is on the show. I still have very high hopes for the match. I think that it will be come the day of the show. I think it will be a very strong match that they have. I just think that they do have their work cut out for them in the next 3 weeks to really make it feel like that. It's one thing to, you sit down, you watch the match, you have a great feeling afterward. But I think part of it is you want to have that build so that going in, it feels like, the feeling you had about wanting to make this trip to go see that particular match.
Yeah, exactly. And that was my frustration with it, was that the build was so frustrating. And this whole tag title and the Reginald stuff made it feel a lot more diminished. But, it is what it is. But I did also watch the show on Peacock today, and I watched it on an Apple TV, and it was really good quality throughout. Like when I watch shows on WWE Network, especially, I notice this with the pyro, you see a lot of artifacting and a lot of issues with pixel drops. With the Peacock stream, it stayed consistent throughout the entire show for me, and I had a really good overall experience with it. So
that's good.
I was really happy with the stream quality, and it's really all that I had. Just wanted to say thanks for the content, guys. You guys are awesome, and really appreciate what you guys are doing.
All right. Well, enjoy WrestleMania, Alex. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Alex. Up next, we go to New Jersey. If he's
hello, hey, what's up?
All right, you are there.
Hi,
how you doing, Brandon?
What's going on, man?
What are you on, like a landline? It sounds like a low quality phone. What is this? Obviously, you're not.
Sounds like Alexa Bliss's theme song.
Yeah.
My headphones, man.
All right. What's going on?
I'll be quick. I'm sorry.
I thought you were retired.
I'm sorry. I'm back. It's been a while. I feel bad for Randy Orton being stuck with another Fiend program. Like, I mean, you remember what happened last time at Mania? It was total death.
Where did you think this was going, Brandon? This has been going on for 4 months.
I haven't been watching. Like, I usually watch like one eye open because I'm usually asleep, but and I listen to your recaps and whatnot. But I mean, tonight I saw with the Fiend. My God, coming back as a charred up Smokey the Bear. Look at that gimmick he's wearing. I mean, that's gonna be brutal to wear that gimmick in the Florida heat in for Mania, right?
Outdoors, yeah.
Oh man! And one more thing, Derek Brunson, he cost me my parlay last night because once again he's the ultimate gatekeeper, and he ruined me making some money. But
once in a row.
Yeah, he's in line for a contender spot, right?
Yeah, your man Calvin's going to be getting into the mix, though.
I'm excited. I'm prepared. All right, I gotta go. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Brandon. Did you watch? Did you watch the Slap Fight Championship? No, he's gone. Okay, we can move on.
Now I need to know.
This Slap Fight Championship was all over my timeline yesterday. I actually felt I had no time to watch it, but I was genuinely curious. Everyone was watching this. Benno was all over this thing.
Oh, the Slap Fight Championships. Okay.
Yeah. Wow. I think you would I think both of us would actually love it if we had sat down and watched it. Dude, do you know who did commentary for it?
Mauro Ranallo.
Not Mauro Ranallo, but pick your wrestling tandem that you would just be your perfect elixir for this particular brand of combat, to call this.
Taz and Jim Ross.
If I told you Matt Stryker and Vampiro were calling this.
Oh, of course. That would be my next choice. Oh, that sounds great.
So I do have a curiosity to watch this thing because it looked. If this had been a weekend with no pay-per-views, I almost might have done a show and watched it.
You know, unfortunately, it was a very busy weekend. But the next Slap Fight Championships, I think people should bank on that.
Okay, maybe.
We have some feedback, everybody, to Fastlane from the message board, and we start off here with Andy from London who says, well, did we go to the poll yet?
We did not. What did people vote this show?
5.55 out of 10.
I'm not going to disagree.
We got an Andy from London who says there were 2 really awesome matches in that pay-per-view, but ultimately, everybody is going to be talking about it for wrong and weird reasons. Rather than add my comments to the laughable match, a question to you both. Do you think Bray and Alexa are remotely happy with the end product? Or is it a case of them doing as they're told and being quietly embarrassed by it all? I think this is exactly what, well, maybe not exactly what Bray Wyatt wants, but I think much of this comes from him. And then obviously, some sort of amalgamation of his ideas with Vince McMahon's and probably the others as well. The thing is like, we've been down this path for years now with this character. So if he was somehow unhappy, I would have assumed that, something would be adjusted by this point. But we continue. So I kind of get the sense that this is probably what they want.
Listen, again, like go look at WWE Shop, and like that's where the greatest value of this Bray Wyatt character is. Like it is, as much as we laugh about this is a brand new version of the Fiend, which means more Mattel figures, more merchandise. It's like a whole different iteration of the Fiend character, which means all this stuff that they can market. And it's, listen, I'm going to talk about it, how it's, how aesthetically unpleasing it is, and it's some terrible television we have to sit through. But there is like that is where they find the value in this character to just
and the character has its fans.
Dude, when they put that Fiend belt out there and there were people buying it, that's when I realized. So I was like, okay.
For the most part, it's not the people who listen to this type of podcast, but there are wrestling fans who don't listen to podcasts like ours.
No, everyone listens to ours, but I mean, they can still partake in this. I mean, I think you are, if there's a subset of online followers that are just Fiend fanatics, you're probably their guiding light. I mean, you have been one that have, I'm
not a fanatic, but at the same time, I'm not going to hate everything that they do with him.
No, that's fine.
I like certain things and dislike certain things.
Okay, we go next here to Hogan. Mike Hogan. The first hour of that show was like any Raw in the last 3 years. Pick one. Thought the show picked up from Rollins versus Nakamura and finished very strong. I think Bray's mask is objectively a cool design, even if the context is silly, to put it mildly. But as a horror fan, I do like it. Not putting makeup around his uncovered eye was a strange detail to miss. That main event was everything I thought it would be and more. There were shenanigans at the end, but it did build the story, and the 25 minutes beforehand were tremendous. Questions: did you prefer this match or the 2015 version? And would you keep the title on Roman coming out of Mania, or would you switch it to Edge or Bryan? I haven't watched the Fastlane match from 15 and probably since that time in February of 2015. They had a great match at that particular event, again, before WrestleMania. I really enjoyed tonight's match a lot. I imagine I would probably have a pretty comparable opinion of both matches, other than they were 6 years younger back in 2015.
I feel like, and I don't remember that match off the top of my head either, but I feel like I enjoy this Roman Reigns character more, and this Daniel Bryan just as much. So, don't know what that says.
And I can certainly see the possibility of a title change at Mania, and you can do it in such a way that Roman doesn't get pinned, or Roman beats one, but then that sets up the singles match with the other the next month. Many different directions you can go, but I think a title change, absolutely possible.
We go to Richard up next, who says, okay, the good: Rollins, Nakamura, Sheamus, and Drew, and the majority of Roman and Bryan. The bad: the ending of the Roman Bryan match could have been booked a lot better, but now at least we're probably getting a triple threat. And the rest of the pay-per-view: the ugly: everything involved with the Fiend. Honestly, with the lighting tonight, he looked like he looked like a vomited, half-eaten bowl of borscht. I really dread what they are planning with these two at Mania. I also feel bad for Alexa. Her character needed a reboot. Being a part of this really doesn't help. The further away from this angle, the better.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to lie that this has reached a territory where, I don't know, maybe Way is just like breaking me down, but like what they have to do at WrestleMania, like to me, the bar is so high now, or low, whichever you prefer to distinguish, that there is definitely a curiosity to see where they go. Like maybe they should just go all out here.
I think they're doing a Firefly Funhouse, and whether or not this year they add any sort of like physical component because of a live audience, that remains to be seen. But I think elements of the cinematic match are going to stay, despite there being audiences. It's the perfect vehicle for this sort of character, so I have no doubt they'll have something big planned for WrestleMania.
Your father had a never-ending arm injury to wear the cast. Well, your cast is mental because you've been broken your whole life.
Wow. You can guarantee Cowboy Bob will be a part of that.
Has to be, yes.
Yeah.
Weird segue, but also I do want to make mention that Randy's uncle, Barry Orton, passed away just this weekend at the age of 62. We do have a story up on the site about that, but I think worth mentioning this weekend that his uncle and Bob Orton's brother passing away. We go to Daniel. Apart from The Fiend, Rollins versus Nakamura, and Drew versus Sheamus, I couldn't have been less bothered about it. Everything else. Apollo and Big E left me confused. The women's tag titles are just there, and I don't want to see Bryan injected into this Mania main event. I have fully embraced The Fiend for what it is, not taking it seriously, and ready for whatever wacky scenario they come up with next. 4 out of 10, he gives this show. I don't know why you would be negative on Bryan being inserted into this. I think they've given you a pretty strong storyline component for it. I think it's a better match with him in it. And a lot that you can do with these three over the next few weeks. I think Bryan enhances it. I'm fine with Edge and Reigns, but I think it's a superior match with Bryan in it. And there's a justification. It's not like this, you're just force feeding someone in just to include him in WrestleMania. There is a spot that he is occupying that I think that match needs.
I think some people, and maybe myself included, prefer sort of the intimacy of a one-on-one program heading into, the ultimate blow-off at WrestleMania. Something about, I think, all the classic matchups being this guy versus this guy, and a central story just based around those two being, feeling a bit more prestigious. But in this case, I think they've done a good enough job that I don't really mind it, but not everybody's going to feel that way. Finally, we go to Kate, who says, I can't be the only person who spent the last several minutes of that show thinking, why do they hate us? I guess they are opening the door to a 3-way at Mania so that either Edge nor Roman have to get pinned, but there are better ways to get there. On the bright side, Sheamus versus Drew was the match of the night for me, up to the standards of what they've shown us the last 2 weeks on Raw and mercifully free of shenanigans. Rollins Nakamura was solid. I would have been happy to watch them for longer if the story had warranted a bigger match. And the kickoff between Riddle and Ali was decent, all the more so because I think, or hope, that it looks like they're finally sending Retribution to a farm-up state. I don't know if they can resuscitate the members or if they'll even bother to try, but just freeing them from this awful gimmick will help. I caught Mission Pro's Empty Promises show last night, and of course, the Lights Out match on Dynamite, and it just made me feel depressed that WWE is unable to do anything better with their women's division than what we saw tonight, given their incredible wealth of resources.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for your feedback tonight. And
great calls, great feedback.
Yeah, a lot of great calls and feedback tonight. So we are going to be back on Monday night with Rewind or Raw, and I think we are in for like a hyper build for WrestleMania. I would not be shocked if by the end of the week we have a pretty good idea of both nights. The only question is, do you expect them to do what NXT is doing and distinguish which nights some of these matches are going to be taking place? Do you think we go into it where, like, it feels really weird to me that we would go into these shows not knowing what matches we're getting either night?
I don't know if they'll do that, like by the end of this week, but I do think by the end of the 3 weeks in the go home shows, I think you will get that. If I'm not mistaken, didn't they do that last year? Or they did, didn't they? Didn't they tell us like what was on night 1, night 2?
Oh God, I feel it wasn't until the kickoff that they actually started listing matches, I think.
Wow, really? Is that right?
That WrestleMania. Last year's WrestleMania was just such a blur.
I suppose like this year, I mean, the only difference that would be was that it would, they are selling tickets, but have they sold out yet thus far?
They were still plugging tickets available tonight on the broadcast, so there must be still some available, but I imagine it's not a huge number.
I guess it doesn't matter, to most people who are getting tickets to either night, whichever one or both is more convenient for them anyway. But yeah, maybe they won't then. I could have sworn they did, but I guess they didn't.
Yeah, it seems very strange with fans there. Like, you're going on one night and you have no idea what matches you're going to see. And that, to me, I think is a mistake in the fact that your live crowd going, no matter what match you save for Sunday, there's going to be fans disappointed. We didn't get this match tonight. You're going to focus on what you didn't get versus what you did get. So make it clear ahead of time so you know going in what it is.
Yeah, I kind of agree. On a 2-night WrestleMania, yeah, you should.
All right, well, we have Rewind to Raw coming up on Monday. If you want to go back and check out some of the shows, Wai has been a machine the past few days. The Wellness Policy with Jordan is up on the free feed. And for Cafe members, we've got MCU Later.
MCU right? Later, the debut edition of MCU Later, spelled L8R, of course. With me and WH Park, we are talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Episode 1, as well as a special bonus review of the Snyder Cut Justice League. How many hours are you in, John, of the 4-hour Snyder Cut?
I'm going to get another viewing in as soon as we're done this. Yeah, it's yeah. I got all I needed out of WH's review. Yeah, that brought me up to speed.
Hey, did you watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
Yes, I did watch it. I'm shocked, literally shocked, that I went all day Friday online and dude, my Twitter is littered with wrestling and MMA accounts, and I didn't hear one peep about George St. Pierre being in this episode. And you even pretty much told me, and I didn't even get the reference when you texted me. And so I was shocked that George St. Pierre was in the opening scene of this. And what an incredible start, that first 15 minutes.
What a great opener. What a great opening scene, I should say. So does that mean, John, that you were happy you weren't spoiled?
No, it's impossible to spoil me. That's what I'm saying, Wai. But it was a great surprise. So sure, Wai, right. if you submitted me into that acceptance,
we are going to try to get John Pollock on one of these reviews for sure, because I know you're watching, and this is your area of expertise, Captain America. So we need your take.
Of course, yes. Yeah, we'll look out if what's his name shows up. So. Yeah, episode 1. I liked episode 1. I thought it was a good, I'm coming it from the perspective of I know basic to nothing about any of these people. I'm literally they're catering this to set the foundation for people like me.
That's the best way to enter without not knowing anything. Yeah, why not?
All right, well, go check that out. It's a great show with Wai and WH, and then we'll speak with you Monday night. We'll be live for our Double Ice Cap and Espresso patrons at 11:15 Eastern, right after Raw, and we'll be chatting about all the news, Raw, whatever else is going on, and that's it. So thanks, everyone, for joining us live, and we'll speak with you later this week.